All right, grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I am Cleopadra Sophia the Bodhi, and this is part two because it's just way too much information to put all in one video. Plus, I want to be able to refer back to it. So, in this video, we're going to talk about actors versus broadcasters. Okay, and this is in the same vein of the whole white Hispanics and Saul and all of that. Okay. In the 3 hour video, in the 3 hour video conversation I had with Crypto on Tuesday, no, on Friday. I'm sorry. We talked about broadcasting, broadcasting love specifically, and I made the comparison between broadcasters and actors as this whole issue between Drake and Kendrick, with Kendrick being a broadcaster, broadcasting the true feelings of the black community, and Drake, of course, being an actor because he's an actor. And so I want to delineate this a little bit more. I have already made a video where I talked about authenticity being the highest vibration. And if you look on TikTok, people are talking about that. But this whole concept of actors versus broadcasters is really important. And it also goes into actors versus the conductor or the maestro. But broadcaster need to be delineated out by itself. I already cut out the part where I was talking about actors versus conductors. But this whole concept of being a broadcaster is really important because it's not related to music. It's related to propaganda. Broadcasters take the official narrative, right? They take the official narrative and they repeat it to the masses. An actor takes a not an official narrative, but a concept that they want, a behavior that they want, and repeats it to the masses. There's a really big, huge difference between an official narrative and a story. They call them the same, like they say broadcasters, our next story, our next thing. No. The official narrative is a narrative that is approved from the top. In a movie, it's an individual, a single individual that wrote a story, right? And they want that actor to portray the story. This matters a lot. We need to be broadcasters, not actors. There is no official story of your life that has been written that you are just showing up to play out. That's not how it works. And most people in the spiritual community believe that's how it works. There is a matrix. Your story has already been written. Everything that you're doing is already basically written in the stars and there's no changing it. That is absolutely not true. That is the antithesis to how the creator works. The creator is infinitely creative. And what he will do is, if a particular story is not playing out the way you, the individual, desire it to, then he will put you on a different timeline so you can play out a different story. And there's infinite numbers of ways to do that. How do these parasite equity do this? Let me give you an example. Last year, one of the sisters, she works at a regular place, like a parasite equity regular place. Last year, they had their employee appreciation week, basically the first week in November, to align with Saturn energy. This year, they're having their employee appreciation this week to align with Jupiter energy. So they just literally pick up from the Saturn energy. Now they use and abuse Saturn to try to, get the people to go along what they say, enforce the numbers, whatever. Now they're moving on to Jupiter energy. Didn't fulfill what they were supposed to with Saturn energy at all. And now they're just moving on to Jupiter energy. You can't do that. You can't do that as a parasite equity because it's totally inauthentic. For us, when we wrap up a cycle, if we're going to move from one set of energy to another set of energy, we are literally closing out the cycle the proper way, giving it an ending, properly learning all the lessons of that cycle, and then moving on to another cycle. That's why things take time. It's not because you did something wrong. It's because every story has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's like if you go to somebody's house, right? You go to their house. What are you supposed to do? That's black folks know. You speak. When you get to somebody's house, you speak to everyone in the house. Hello, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Hugs and all of that. Then what happens next? Let's say you're going for Sunday dinner. You go to somebody's house. There's a bunch of people there. You speak to everyone there, okay? Then you sit down and you wait for them to tell you dinner's prepared. You eat dinner, right? And then usually after dinner, black folks have a thing that they do. Some people is playing board games. In my family, we played cards or just sat around and chit-chat, whatever. You sit around, you chit-chat, you play cards or whatever it is. And then at the end of the night, you leave. That's the proper way to handle a situation. The moon phases. It goes from, you have waning, you have waxing, let me see if I wrote it down in here. I don't even know why I'm referring to this stuff. It seems kind of random, but I guess it's not. Let me see. Here we go. And we start our cycle from full moons. So first you have the full moon. Then you have the waning gibbous moon. Then you have the third quarter moon. Then you have the waning crescent moon. Then you have the new moon. That's the middle of the cycle. That's when you are eating the food. Then you have the waxing crescent. Then you have the first quarter moon. Then you have the waxing gibbous. Then you have the full moon. That is 9 steps, okay? And so you can't decide, even though you've already done the full moon part, that you're not going to end on the full moon part where you say bye to everybody and you leave the house. That's not an option. Like, you have to end something the same way you began. If you began it in, it's not the same way. It's the same way, but in reverse, right? Because when you exit a house, you are doing the same thing. You're crossing the threshold. But instead of crossing the threshold to enter, you're crossing the threshold to exit. So you can't leave out the house. Like, it's improper, at least in black community, to leave out the house without saying goodbye. People will be like, well, where's such and such? Oh, well, they left. Oh, they didn't say goodbye? That's weird. Like, you can't do that. Even if you're in a rush, if you can only stay for dinner, you don't have the time to chit chat afterwards. Or let's say you come late and you come right before dinner and then you have time to stay and chit chat. It doesn't matter. Whenever you entered in a full moon. And that means you have to exit at the full moon. There's no getting out of that. Like you entered in your full power and you have to exit in your full power, in your autonomous power, right? You can't think you're going to exit in non-autonomous power. That does not make any sense. You entered in full autonomous power, you're going to exit in full autonomous power, okay? That's why cycles take time, because they just have to run the course. And so it's improper for these parasite equity to continue to just bounce around from timeline to timeline, and what I call them timeline colonizers, to bounce around from timeline to timeline, thinking that they can just do whatever they want. That's improper. That's just like this whole thing with the crown jewels in France and all that's going on right now. It was the Haitian French Empire, not Francia, but the Haitian French Empire that sold the blacks who were in this country already on this land out. They sold us out to these other colonizers and was like, yeah, we'll sell them to you. How much we don't live there, right? They didn't live here. They lived on the islands, like a private island. So they didn't care what happened to us who were living here on this land. So they came in, they made land, just like I said with Tammany. They came in, they made land deals, they sold us out, all of this stuff. And basically they ran and hid their hand. That's why those crown jewels, Napoleon's crown jewels of all things, who was trying to rid the Francia Empire of the Haitians, because that's what he was doing. He was trying to rid the Francia Empire of the Haitians. That's why they stole his crown jewels. Or not, they weren't stolen either. They weren't stolen. The jewels were not stolen. It was the entities they had guarding the jewels that say, hey, we don't have to do this anymore. Actually, we're free to do whatever we want, and we don't have to do this. We unbound them. We unbound all the entities, so they don't have to do that stuff. And so, as a result of unbinding them and saying, hey, go out and do what you think is proper, France is falling apart. They had a tornado this morning. The last time France had a tornado was like 1860 or something like that. I haven't looked into it all the way. But they had a tornado, the likes of which they haven't had since the 1800s. They never have tornadoes in France. So first in France, their government collapsed, right? The government has been collapsing on and off, and Macron is just, pretending it's not. Their government collapsed. Then after the government collapsed, they had this brazen theft of the crown jewels from the Apollo. It's called the Apollo Theater or the Apollo Hall or something like that. So they stole the crown jewels from under Apollo's nose, which would never happen because they had Apollo guarding it. So they didn't steal it. Like that's just not what happened. Now they're trying to blame it on some Russians, which, why are they even involving the Russians? You see how they're trying to blame it on some Russians, which doesn't even make sense because just like in 9/11, one of them left their passport. Now, if you robbed a museum in broad daylight, would you even be carrying your passport? Like, I'm gonna need them to run a different scam than the 9/11 scam because that's what they're doing right now. Anyway, so they're trying to blame it on the Russians. So that means they're trying to make this Russian war go on, which is not going to happen. Then they're at the same time, simultaneously, now they're like, I don't even know what you call it, but they had a tornado today, and I think yesterday something else in their government collapsed. So France is getting hit hard because why? Oh, I know. I think it was last week the Haitian selected prime minister of Madagascar, I think, got kicked out, and France had to come and pick him up by plane because they was getting ready to tar and feather this guy. So, not literally, but they were getting ready to get rid of him. So the same way that these people came into power, they're being removed from power. The same crime and thieving and obviously they called weather catastrophes on us. The same weather catastrophes they used to call on this country are being returned back to them. That's what a return to sender looks like. So that's what they're doing. They're literally now on the receiving end of the things that they called against us in this country. And so, as an actor, that's what would happen to you. They were bad actors. They didn't fulfill their contracts. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. All the stuff they did was just wrong. And so now, that's why I said we have to be broadcasters. We have to broadcast the truth. Now, this is different from being a maestro, which I'm going to do another video on. We're going to talk about that because a conductor is only focused on the orchestra. So we're not talking about this. We're talking about how to get your message out to the masses on what they need to do, like the general population, the general public. And so I wanted to talk about this from the perspective of leaving a legacy, hermit mode, and also perception is reality. So I'll start with perception is reality because it's not on my list. What you look like you are. what you look like you are. If it looks like voodoo and it seems like voodoo, it is voodoo. If it looks like Ifa, Santeria, and it seems like Santeria, Ifa, then it is. That's what it is. So hoodoo, voodoo, Ifa, Santeria, they all worship the same God. Okay? That's not our God. That's a cultural thing. I don't care what they do. They can do whatever they want. But on this land, you're going to treat it like a culture and not like a religion. It's a culture. So you guys get together and you do cultural things. I don't see that as problematic as long as it's a culture. The problem is when you worship those gods as the creator. That's not allowed. We have one God on this land, and he's the creator, and his son is Jesus, and his mother is the creatrix, and our sister is the Thaumaterga. Like, that's how it works. We have one Godhead on this land. It's the creator and his parts, okay? So this is where religions come in. Now, I don't even think all the religions are worshiping different gods either. But you have to be able to intellectually separate the religious part from the cultural part. So the way that they do this in the Orthodox Church is they have Orthodox churches for the cultures, which is like a Russian Orthodox Church. There's a Siberian not Siberian. There's Armenian Orthodox Church. There's Ethiopian Orthodox Church. All of these different cultural Orthodox churches. So they mix their culture with their religion. I don't think there's a problem with that either. But they're not worshiping their cultural gods as the creator. They're working with them. They're not giving up their culture. I don't think people have to give up their culture. This is where I separate myself from the native blacks and all these other Solon, whoever these people are, FBAs. Don't give up your culture. Keep your culture. But understand it's a culture and it's not your religion. That's all you have to do. It's not a problem. The creator is not telling you to come to him and leave your culture, okay? That's what the churches are doing. But the creator's not doing that. Folk magic is nothing but cultural. It is literally the cultural practices of a group of people. That's folk magic. So for black people, it's what? Black-eyed peas and greens on the first of the year. That's a cultural thing that deals with our cultural gods. The problem is we don't even know that's cultural, that's a cultural thing, and that we have cultural gods. Of course we have cultural gods, okay? A lot of our cultural gods come from other places in the world because there's not really cultural gods on this land. It just doesn't work like that. The cultural gods come from Ham and Japheth. Shem didn't have a cultural god. It didn't work like that. So keep your culture, whatever your culture is. Just worship the creator. I think that's fine. I don't see what the problem is with that. I'm going to keep my culture. Let me put it this way. I worship the creator. I go to my church that feels comfortable and resonates with me and my culture. And I do that. For some people, it'll be the Christian church. For some people, it'll be Islam. For some people, it'll be Judaism. Do whatever you want. Go to a registered, organized church and worship the creator in whatever form you want. It could be Hindu, it could be whatever. A lot of that stuff is cultural. Theirs is more intertwined than even the Judeo-Christian, Islam, whatever. Those are more intertwined. And so, again, that's none of our business. We don't have to get involved in that. We can just say, hey, that's your cultural thing. I love it. It's beautiful. I can go and participate in your cultural practices because the creator has given me the freedom to participate in whatever culture I want to. But am I going to worship your God as the creator? No, that's not how it works. Even if you have a God that's a creator God, right? That's fine. He's not the creator. Brahma is a creator God, but people don't really work with Brahma. Like, only the weird Brahmins who started in Massachusetts work with Brahma as if he is the creator over everything. And And then they don't get into the cultural stuff. So this is why you have to be balanced. Be balanced with your religion and your culture. If you have a church that does both together, like the black church, that's fine. However, a lot of that's not what's going on. They won't explain to you the difference, but it doesn't matter. If you understand the difference, you can enforce, broadcast your will into any circumstance. This is why we have to come, again, second point, out of hermit mode. Hermit mode is very selfish. Hermit mode is very selfish. What we should be doing is broadcasting our newfound understandings onto the places where we want the change to happen. If I want to see the change in the Orthodox Church where they understand and they recognize that black people were already engaged in orthodoxy before they came across that Bering Strait, I have to be in the church and I have to be emanating that. I have to be broadcasting that. And it's not talking about it, it's being it. I have to literally be it. It has to be so obvious that it's written on my forehead that black people have always been Orthodox. The number of black people showing up at my church, and now it's not just, what you call them, Caribbean blacks. It's normal blacks now showing up too. Unheard of. And it's only going to increase because I am anchoring myself into the Orthodox Church of America because I'm an American and I'm Orthodox and we've been Orthodox for longer than they have their records for, which is fine because they're based off the Russian Orthodox Church. But as new facts come into being, you think they're not going to accept new facts? That's not how the Orthodox Church works. If new facts come in, maybe the rank and file won't want to accept it, but the bishop will. Obviously, the leaders will. They'll be like, oh, okay, they won't like it, but they won't have a choice because an angel will, just like with Sarah, the angel will come and pester them until they accept the truth. And all that, it doesn't have, it's not a loud revolution. It's a broadcast revolution. I am broadcasting that orthodoxy was in America before they came across the Bering Strait. They can't ignore that. They don't know it. Black people don't know it because blacks won't go into the Orthodox Church and Orthodox people don't go into the black church. So these people never cross. But as soon as there starts to be a bridge between the two, which it is coming, I'm broadcasting that, then it's going to start to show up. So broadcasting is literally taking the message that the Creator gave you and standing firm in it. And it doesn't mean, again, saying it. It doesn't mean arguing with people about any of this stuff. It's just whenever someone asks you, you confirm the truth. Now, and let me talk about that. You have to affirm reality even if it's currently a lie. It is a lie right now for me to say that Orthodoxy was in America before they came across the Bering Strait. There's no proof of that, but it's still the reality. And eventually, when you're affirming reality, reality will start to conform to your broadcast. So even though I'm out here on an island saying something that no one else is saying, I'm still going to continue to say it. It doesn't matter. Just like I've been, saying hoodoo, voodoo, Ifa, and Santeria, they all worship the same gods. Islam too, put them in there. The black Muslims, NOI, people, they worship the same God. It's the same God. I don't care if you don't have proof for it right now. I'm confirming reality. I'm affirming reality. And eventually you'll figure it out that what I'm saying is true. And when you do, you'll have to come back like the leper and say, oh my gosh, you healed me. Because these entities, these various Sun Wukong and Allah and these various whatever gods, they've been able to hide because you don't have people affirming reality even though it's not true on paper. I don't get my information from the paper. So therefore I can't confirm what's on a piece of paper, but I know what's in my blood. I can feel it. You can't tell me I don't feel it in my blood. You can't tell me that. You can try to tell me that. It doesn't mean I have to believe it, and I don't. And therefore, I'm going to affirm reality. Okay, I'm going to make a third video. Yeah, I'm just going to make a third video. So shalom, peace and blessings, and we'll see you in the next video.